Call the meeting to order. Roll call of alderman.
Heisler.
Here.
Kinsella.
Here.
Meyer. Holt. Here. Anderson. Rudowitz.
Here.
Carpenter.
Here.
Hart.
Here.
Silsby.
Here.
Hayden.
Here.
Seibert. Martinson.
Here.
Elmore.
Here.
Schneider. Here. Musgrove.
Here.
Arlen.
Here. Alderman Seibert is excused. Roll call department heads.
Police Chief Clay.
Here.
Fire Chief Langston. Mike Flynn.
Here.
Ken Vaughn. Bryce Carlisle.
Here.
Jamie Matrix. Tim Gregowitz.
Here.
Jim Schneider.
Here.
Leander Spearman.
Here.
Emily Foltz. Chuck Schaefer. Bob Sable.
Here. Chuck Schaefer and
Ken Vaughn.
Ken Vaughn are excused, and the other third one was,
Chief Lang.
oh, Chief Langs was on vacation yet today, and Chief Panay is here in his presence. That should take care of the staff, right? This time, ladies and gentlemen, would you please stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, begin tonight's meeting. There's no public hearing, no open public participation. I would ask that you raise your hand, that when I recognize you, you step up to the microphone, give your name and address, and keep your remarks hopefully to about 2 to 3 minutes if possible. Yes, sir. You can be first.
Michael Hagberg, 701 Centerville Ave. On the electric aggregation, it's been nearly 6 weeks since the aggregation contract was approved. I have yet to receive my first opt-out notice. I don't wish to wait another 6 weeks before participating in the program. Is there a way that I can call Ameren and immediately opt in to the new program to start saving money this month?
Yes, I thought I told you the other night, Michael, there's a number. If you call Erin in my office, she's got a number. There was a group of people, and myself was included. I just got my letter now. Apparently it had something to do with those who were on budget billing. There was a group of them that got omitted from getting the letters.
I'm not on budget.
Okay, well that was what part of the explanation Erin got. So
Okay.
if you call tomorrow to Erin, she has a direct number. They've been very cooperative, and
I can just opt into the program immediately?
I don't want to sit here and guarantee you that, but I believe they've had that ability to make that work.
Okay. Tonight's agenda, Midwest Plumbing. Referring to the development agreement between Midwest and the city, paragraph 1 states the demolition and asbestos survey costs will be included. Paragraph C states only the demolition costs will be included. Please amend paragraph C to include the asbestos survey as mentioned in paragraph 1. In paragraph B, it states that Midwest Plumbing shall create one job. There's no definition of a job. This could mean that they could hire someone to clean the toilets once a week. Clearly not the intent of the agreement, nor in the best interest of the taxpayers who are funding the agreement. Please change the wording from retain one job to create one full-time equivalent job. On the occupancy permit, having read through as best I can section 33-2-B, after you get through all the legalese, it seems to me like if grandma comes to visit the children, you would be required to go to Belleville and obtain an updated permit before she's allowed to spend the night. The follow-up is on 33-2-4. The only individuals allowed to authorize to reside in a dwelling shall be the individuals listed on the occupancy permit. This would mean no guests, nobody, unless you come to City Hall and update your permit.
Thank you. Mr. Flynn, we'll talk about this after a bit. Go ahead, let's get all the public participation in. Let's get to the public first, and then I'll come to the council. Joyce? You come up, please, and give your name and address.
Joyce Johnson. My office address is 1516 West Boulevard, Belleville, Illinois. And I'm a realtor. And this question is for Ken Kinsella. He's not listening.
I'm sorry, I am.
Oh, okay. Okay, this is for Ken. On this occupancy permit thing, there is a lot of people who are renting houses that you folks don't know about. And if somebody gives me a call, I'll be glad to show you how to find out who they are by pulling it up in a computer, because you want to control some people, but these people are getting away with renting houses by putting all the utilities in their name yet, and they don't even live around here. So anyhow, if you could give me a call, Ken, I'd be glad to show you how to do it.
Thank you.
Or I'll help you do it. Okay?
Thank you.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Rick Brown, 618 South Pennsylvania Avenue, Belleville. Former Mayor Kern and the former city attorney, Bob Sprague, and now Eckert and Mr. Flynn, you four people have ruined this town with some of your stupid ordinances that you've given to the council to pass. You know, a few months ago I came in here and both of you lied to me, the council, and the people in the audience, and said that the ordinance that, said that the Judge Katz didn't call the ordinance vague. And Mr. Flynn proceeded to throw his son Brian under the bus, who was in the courtroom, and you threw Lieutenant Sparger under the bus for writing the memo that was rescinded. You know, and you know, you guys lied. And prima facie evidence of that is this new ordinance, clarifying a vague ordinance. Okay? There's 8 sentences that you added to this ordinance. Number 1, the owners shall identify the individuals authorized to reside in said dwelling unit. This makes the owner of the home, whether it's owner occupied or he rents it out, personally liable criminally for adding names to the list. Second sentence, the person making an application for an occupancy permit for a dwelling unit shall identify the individuals who will occupy the dwelling unit and their relationships. Okay, now you're making the applicant personally criminally liable. What's the relationships? Is it husband? Is it wife? Is it lesbian lover? Is it, you know, oh, this is my boyfriend over here and we're going to be staying together? You know, or is it, you know, yo, this is my bitch? You know, is that what you want to know?
There are some children here, Mr. Brown.
Yes, sir.
I would ask that you refrain your language.
Yes, sir.
And you've got...
The third question, or the third sentence in here, after an occupancy permit has been issued, it shall be thereafter unlawful for the owner to change or allow a change in occupancy with or without the change of ownership of the dwelling unit, without the owner obtaining a new occupancy permit prior to the change of the occupancy, which lists the new occupants. Now, is it change on? Is it change off? If somebody's baby dies, do they have to take the baby off the ordinance? You know, what happens if the college student goes to college and then 3 years later comes back? You got to take them off, you got to put them back on. You know, what's the length of time? None of that's addressed here. Sentence 4. A change in occupancy shall mean a change in possession of a dwelling unit by way of rental, leasehold, ownership, or other manner of tenancy. Well, what's other manner? That's vague. You know, it means anything you want. And that makes it vague. You know, sentence number 5. In any case where the birth or adoption of a child is the cause of a change in occupancy, or the birth or adoption of a child causes the number of persons to exceed the maximum occupancy permitted in this section, such occupancy shall be permissible until 1 year after the birth or adoption. Well, what that sentence says is they can stay for a year if it's exceeded the occupant load. What happens after a year? Do they have to move out? Do you have to build a room? You know, it's not in there. 6th sentence. An updated occupancy permit must be obtained within 1 year of the birth or adoption of a child. And I suppose that's for if the occupant's load isn't exceeded. You know, that's the way I'm looking at it. The 7th sentence. No fee and no inspection shall be required for the issuance of new occupancy permit upon the birth or adoption of a child, upon presentation of a birth certificate listing one of the authorized occupants as the parent of said child. Well, what about grandparents? They have a dead daughter and they're raising the kids. They're not on the birth certificate as the parent. What about foster children? The state pays people to take care of kids. You know, what about foreign exchange students? You had one in your house, I believe, Mr. Mayor. How does that work? They're not going to have a birth certificate with your name on it. You know, there's a lot of stuff a person can do without an occupancy or without a birth certificate. I can get an airplane ticket. I can get an airplane, a pilot's license. I can get a driver's license. I can borrow money. I can enter into contracts. The only two things that I really know that you need a birth certificate for is to get a passport and to get a concealed carry. I don't really know of anything else right off the hand. And the last thing, the last sentence, the only individuals authorized to reside in a dwelling unit shall be the individuals listed on the occupancy permit. I have a constitutional right to privacy. It's guaranteed in the Constitution. It's fundamental. Sex offenders have to register, not law-abiding citizens. Who's in my bed and who's in my crib is none of your damn business. Who are you trying to control, Mayor?
Thank you. Yes, sir.
Stuart Lander, 318 South 29th Street, Belleville. And about the controlling, I had a couple of these yard Nazis come taking pictures over my privacy fence. Now, as Brown was saying, next thing you know, they're going to be taking pictures of you in your yard, and into your bedroom, and they'll be looking in your ice box and not hard tell what. And as far as cats, I was up there when the Griffin and Cats occupancy permit took place at the courthouse. I seen the whole thing. Cats throwing it out. She said the ordinance is too vague. So I guess you think high-powered attorneys can't write an ordinance that ain't too vague. And as far as this grocery store at Bel Air, I always thought locations on, real estate always says location, location. Well, we need a grocery store south of Belleville, south side. We got all kinds of them out there by, we got, everybody knows what's out there. And then, but this guy wants us to pay $200,000 to build him a new grocery store. He had one, Kroger had one down across from Offenburg not too long ago. And he wants to build a grocery store, fine, I don't care where he builds, as long as he uses his own money. And I'm beginning to think Belleville has got this pattern in got a collection, whatever. They're collecting derelict buildings, green spots, and parking lots. And these hobbies are costing the taxpayers a lot of money. And I don't think I might as well stay around any longer because the gist of the meeting is going to be taking place when we all have to leave the building. Thank you.
Anyone else this evening? Yes?
Greetings, Honorable Mayor, Automatic Council. I personally has had some problems with this occupancy situation. I was in court when Honorable Judge Katz made her ruling. I think this is much ado about nothing right here. I think this does not get to the problem at hand, this birth certificate situation, and I think this is going to tax our police department on some more nonsensical stuff. I think we as a people have to work together, and passing all these ordinances is not going to resolve any problems. I filed a citizen's complaint over 6 months ago, officially October 29th. That spent 3 months. If these ordinances was going to be applied fairly to everybody, and then I'd be for this. But when you got road cops out here writing tickets, knocking holes in my walls, throwing people out with the landlords already, I can't go for no crime bill. I can't go for this. I would rather we put some resources in education, working together. The demographics have changed here. We've got to work together. This is just going to tie us up, give people time, opportunities to take pot shots at us. This stuff has nothing to do with what the judge talked about. I personally have 10 tickets pending now. People not being on occupancy permit, people being on occupancy permit, Mayor. We've got some great resources here. If we can work together, get past all the bigotry, get past all the hatred, stop just trying to lock everybody out, work together, invest in our communities and our resources through education and getting to know each other. We can blow a lot of stereotypes. We can get together. We all have concerns with our property interests, with all these laws about the baby over here and reporting this information. You don't have no people of color, whether they're agents over in housing. Cops who wants to harass people is going to harass people. I'm a businessman. I was locked up for 16 years for a crime I didn't commit, a triple murder. I was exonerated from the 7th Circuit of Court. I didn't come back to Belleville bitter. I picked myself up with my own bootstraps. I worked hard. I didn't bother anybody. I have a bachelor's degree in general studies. I haven't been a part of this administration. I want an administration here that's going to welcome everybody. We can work together, blow a lot of these stereotypes, educate people, give these people some chances. That'll help solve the crime problem. We just can't fight crime. We got to resolve crime through education. Get some things for these people to do. No swimming pools. They have nothing to do but stand around on the corner on Freedom Avenue. And he's all been up here talking about how they want to take bulldozers and bulldoze these buildings and how they want to do this to minorities. These are people that we look up to. We've got to come together at the table of brotherhood, work together. We need a things to do list, how we can get everybody involved. And then if people continue to commit crimes, I say prosecute them to the fullest extent of the law. But this here is not, it's not even worth your time. This is not going to solve our problems. And I thank you guys for your time. But if you need me, call me and I'll be here for you. Because like I said before, I never met a person I didn't like. Prejudice is a luxury I can't afford. I just want to see us moving in the right direction. Thank you and God bless you.
Mr. Griffin, what is your address you didn't give?
I apologize. 305 North Charles Street, Ward 2, Belleville, Illinois.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other
Anybody else
questions?
this evening?
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Bob White, 2419 Pro Tour Drive. Mr. Mayor, council members. Just like a couple of comments on the Belleville occupancy permit that you're going to be voting on tonight. Let me just read a couple of statements. Residents of single or multiple family dwellings must file occupancy permits that ask for the name, relationship, date of birth of all residents of the household. It must be reported immediately if there are any changes. I've got a fundamental argument against this. I've spent 30 years in the Air Force defending the United States of America, and I believe this is an infringement on my rights when you come into my house and tell me what I have to do. I really do not like that. And second of all, as to why the city gathered this information, the general reason is to prevent unsafe living conditions in units that are too small to render the number of people, or too small not to take for the number of people. I've seen houses in foreign countries where you have many, many people living in them, some of them even with straw or dirt floors that are cleaner than a lot of the apartments I've gone into in any area with one person in it. My point is only that you can't judge the cleanliness or the health issues of a building judicially by controlling the number of people that live there. It just doesn't work. In my simple mind, it just doesn't make sense. And I ask the aldermen to consider that in their vote this evening. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Jared Boyer, 208 East Main Street. I just want to speak in favor of the occupancy permit. You know, I used to be a renter and I have rental units right now, and I know that it's really been for me a protection and really some technical assistance, that when the city comes in, they can look at things that you know, a normal renter might not be looking for safe conditions. So I really think we're looking at this all in the wrong way, that it's actually a great benefit to the residents of Belleville that the city is willing to come in and look at living conditions to make sure that it's safe for the people that are living there. And also it can be a third-party conflict resolution where somebody would like to rent a space, but they don't know how to talk to their landlord about some improvements, and the city can do that for them. So I actually think it's a great benefit.
Thank you. Yes, ma'am.
Victoria Wygott, 605 South Pennsylvania Avenue. I'm for the occupancy permit, and one of the reasons being across the street from me, there was a rental property that a young couple had rented. And within, a year, there was 3 families living in this house. They actually turned the garage into another bedroom, and there was no heat out there or anything. By the time she finally got this family out of there, they had stolen all of her cabinets, her, bathroom, supplies, ruined the flooring. She had to completely redo the whole house. And, she had a very tough time getting these people out of the house. But it was terrible. I mean, I was living across the street from this, and there's police cars there every so often. There were troublemakers, and I think it's important that we don't have, this kind of problem especially in our neighborhoods. It's getting to be too many rentals in our neighborhood. I know in my neighborhood, there's getting to be too many rentals. We got to keep control of that. Thank you.
Anyone else? If there's nothing else, I'm going to close public participation. Council address, okay? Close the public participation at this time. Lillian, would you like to speak?
Yes, I would like
Can you use the microphone, please?
Yes, Lillian Schneider, 219 Kansas Avenue, Alderman, Ward 7, and at large. The FOIA I turned in the last time, I guess it wasn't clear enough for Eric for the information he sent me. I have it over there on the board. So I would like to turn in another one and try to make it a little bit more, maybe to be able to understand what I'm having or what I'm asking for. I have an example over there on the board, which I will take off and put with my FOIA. And it says, I would like copies of any active development agreements. A sample is attached. Each agreement must include the common company, name, address, responsibilities of the city, and responsibilities of the business. Also include copies of your follow-up reports. These reports should detail when and who you've spoken to, along with any documentation proving sales and employment levels if required by the agreement. So I would like to turn that. And I have to thank Eric, because he asked me the last time out in the hall, he gave me an idea. He asked me if I thought he wasn't doing his job well, and my answer was, I replied, no, this is my right to get this information. But I didn't think about it as me not doing my job right to the people in the city of Belleville, to make sure we are checking and to make sure all the agreements, when we give money, whether it's sales tax, whatever they get for our business, I think we should be able to see the reports where we went and checked up on these businesses. The one that I'm going to turn in as an example is Market Fresh Pizza. I've been there 3-4 times. I can't find anybody there. It's all boarded up. The contract says how many employees they're supposed to have the first year and then thereafter. And I think it would be good just to see if they are still, business. We don't know. And I've been there and I can't find anybody.
And I just found out just recently that I believe they have closed up now, and we'll talk about that at staff meeting. But I think, as was explained to you, Alderman Schneider, we do follow up between Jamie.
Well, then I would like to see the report. There has to be some kind of documentation that you followed up on.
Okay.
I would also like to.
Okay. Well, Eric, you got more specifics? Do you feel like because I know it was very vague at first what she had.
No, I'll go through all the files, and based on all the files we have and pulling all the documentation that we have for however many years that is.
Well, you have on your thing here, all you have is the name. You have no addresses, where they are, or anything. And this is what I want to see. When did you check up on some of these places? Like this Market Fresh Pizza. I've been there, and did you know they were closed up, or?
I just heard it. So, and I think if you did hear something, then please call the office and tell us.
Well, I wasn't sure, I've been going by.
We don't have enough staff to patrol the streets or you know, we don't. I mean, to do that, I mean, we have to rely on
We're giving
people.
all this money out, and we're giving away good taxpayers.
I don't know what we did with market, I don't remember exactly, but I don't think it was,
Just B and C and D right off the thing. I mean, there's A, B, C, D, E, and F. Market Fresh Pizza shall commit to create 10 jobs within the first year of operation. Market Fresh Pizza shall commit to create 6 additional jobs within the second year. Market Fresh Pizza shall commit an annual sales subject to sales tax of no less than $349,000.
and what did we give them?
Responsibility, the certification of project location, and Belleville enterprise, savings estimate at tax building materials used exclusively for remodeling of the existing facility, savings estimated at $3,400 located at 801 West Main Street. Any building materials purchased prior to the approval of City Council and insurance of the city certificate will not be eligible for the sales tax abatement. I mean,
So we gave them sales tax abatement on building materials.
but it's still, we gave them some, it's,
Okay, no, well, we didn't give them any, they just didn't get charged sales tax on building materials, but the one thing I will say, and I wasn't aware until just the other day, it was brought to my attention that somebody told me they thought they went out of business, but they made some significant improvements on that property, which it looks a heck of a...
this is just an example.
But
On
we
the
didn't
list-
give them any TIF money.
But on the, okay, what about the Skyview Drive-In? There's supposed to be an extra screen built.
Well, we're still working with them, and if he doesn't live up to his end of the thing, Mr. Flynn will start the proceedings for them to have to pay back. And we've done that. We're in litigation right now with Fisher Lumber. We've settled several of them as we try to explain. I mean,
But we don't, I asked to see the list of when these businesses are checked upon. Go out, you know,
well, we check upon, if there's a development agreement where we're paying money, Jamie's got a list, right, Jamie? I mean, it's,
They have to turn in documentation before we release any money.
right. So, but you authorize that, and then that all has to be in the audit and everything else that we're paying out. If it's sales tax abatement on building materials, we don't have the staff to go out, but if they're open for a year, and they've made improvements on a building that was sitting there empty, like the one at 8th and Main was, that's just a plus for us. I mean, I hated that if the young man did go out of business, that's sad. But the business world is tough and the economy's been difficult. However, that building looks much better today and will be much more marketable to sell for somebody else to go in there. It was not very nice looking before he went in there. So what we only gave him was abatement on sales tax of building materials, and that's a program through the state. The city of Belleville is not out any cash. I mean, we're not out any TIF. We're not out of cash. We simply granted him a certificate, and I don't even know how much of it he used. And you know, so I mean, it's to me, we did get benefit out of that, even though unfortunately his business didn't last. We got an improved building. We got a better looking building, and it increased the tax base, I'm sure. I'm sure the county assessment on that building went up. I would venture to say, opposed to what it was before he bought the building.
but all the rest of the places, on the list that Eric has, I would like to see when they were checked upon.
Well, we will look at that again. We'll talk about it at staff meeting tomorrow, and we will certainly take a look at it, okay? Any other staff people have comments at the moment? Oh, yes, Joe, go ahead. You want to just do it from right there, or you want to stand up?
Yeah, I just wanted to change it a little bit. Most of you know I lost my wife a couple of weeks ago, and my children were writing thank you notes and all, and I told them that that was fine, but I just wanted to take a minute here to thank all of you here and all through this for your kindness and the wonderful thoughts, verbal and written, and it was a very helpful thing, and some of you people and some of the people that work for the city have been wonderful in this, and I just wanted to thank you for all your wonderful help.
You're welcome, Joe. Keep thinking of it. I know it's hard. I know it's difficult. Thanks for being here. I was very, I know it's tough, but I was surprised you were here at the last meeting, and but like you told me, Joan would want you to.
Joan would have told me to, and I'm sure Joan thanks you all for how nice you've been to me.
She was an outstanding lady. Anybody else at this time? I think what we'll do is we'll wait till we get to the ordinance, and I'll probably talk to the staff a little bit, and we'll probably answer a few questions then. Okay, we'll move on to the, at this time, St. Elizabeth's Hospital asked me to read a proclamation, and I told them I would do so. They asked me, is anyone here from St. Elizabeth's this evening? Okay, but I will read the proclamation, which I think is also very good information to share. Proclamation states, whereas about 600,000 people die of heart disease in the United States, and about 935,000 Americans have a heart attack each year. And whereas risk factors can be prevented or controlled, heart disease is still the leading cause of death for all Americans and accounts for $1 out of every $6 spent on health care. And whereas the City of Belleville and St. Elizabeth's Hospital supports the Million Hearts National Initiative launched by the Department of Health and Human Services to prevent 1 million heart attacks and strokes by the year 2017. And whereas the residents of Belleville are encouraged to take the Million Hearts pledge to prevent heart disease and stroke by understanding the risk, get up and get active by exercising for 30 minutes on most days of the week. Know your ABCs, appropriate aspirin therapy, blood pressure control, cholesterol management, smoking, basically not to smoke. Stay strong by eating a heart-healthy diet. Take control of your heart health by following your healthcare professionals' instructions for medications treatments. Now therefore, I, Mark W. Eckert, Mayor of the City of Belleville, do hereby proclaim February 2013 as Heart-to-Heart Health Awareness Month. And I urge all residents, schools, businesses, and civic leaders to take time to educate ourselves about the risk of heart disease and recognize the effects and the efforts of local healthcare professionals dedicated to prevention, early detection, and effective treatment, and consider what steps you and your family can take to promote and adopt a healthier heart lifestyle. Very good information, and I was happy to share that, and I appreciate St. Elizabeth's for asking us to share that with all of us. It is very important. At this time, we will go on to the reading of the minutes. I ask for a motion to approve the minutes of the regular City Council meeting held January 7th, 2013.
Your Honor, I'd like to make a motion to approve the file minutes of the January 7th, 2013 meeting.
Motion.
Your Honor.
Motion by Alderman Heisler, second. Second by Alderman Kinsella. Any discussion? Yes, ma'am.
On page 9, I would like the comment that I made that the market drop in 2008 be added to these minutes.
Okay. Any objections to that, gentlemen?
No, wrong, yes.
You got that, Mrs. Field? Okay. Hearing that, if there's no other corrections, all in favor of approving the minutes to be filed with that correction added, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Claims, payroll, disbursements.
Yes, Your Honor, I move to have the claims, payroll, and disbursements be paid.
Motion by Alderman Anderson. Do I
Second,
hear?
Your Honor.
Second by Alderman Heisler. Do I hear any discussion?
I have a question. I did ask the finance director, but she wasn't quite sure. Can you tell me, under administration, there are several $50 charges to local businesses that do not have to do with the program or some
That was the Christmas, we had a program with the marketing where it was through Clue, the radio station. We did some marketing, and they gave away some gift cards to Belleville downtown businesses, right, Jerry, to Main Street, and then they could redeem them. I think we had 5 of them. I think there was 5 $50 ones that were part of this radio thing. That was also part of that breakfast with Santa, one family one. So it was just a thing that we tried this year with marketing. And hearing from some.
I don't understand how it's coming out of city money, how it wasn't out of either chamber money or downtown Belleville or.
The city paid for the radio advertisement with Clue and KEZK this year, as we've done in the past. It's in our marketing budget, and we've done that the last several years. We have a lot of small businesses in Belleville that don't have the kind of budget that can pay for radio. And this year, Clue came to us and suggested that they had something where people can text in or do something, and they could win these couple gift certificates and or a breakfast with Santa. So that was one of the things they tried, and it seemed to be pretty good. I know several of the merchants. I know Mr. Blankard told me that he was amazed at how many people this year told him that they heard about shopping downtown on a couple of the St. Louis stations. So, and I think Jerry and the Chamber both had given me feedback. So we're trying things to help, and we'll see. We won't know yet for a couple, well, I guess another month, about December sales tax. A couple of weeks we'll hear about November's, I guess. And, that's the only way we can really judge.
Or maybe Jerry knows if the people who did win were from out of Belleville?
It was a little bit of both.
Okay.
Oh, yeah, there was a couple small towns.
The majority was outside of Belleville.
Okay.
Yeah, the people who won the breakfast with Santa actually were from, the family was kind of split between Edwardsville and Greenville. And then the one gentleman that got one of the gift certificates, he was from outside of Belleville. I forget where exactly, but I know he wasn't. And called my office back to say he had such a great experience at the one restaurant that he and his family will be back. So, I think there's some indicators that some of these efforts are paying off for our businesses.
Thank you.
Anybody else? So we have a motion and a second to approve the claims and payroll disbursements. Roll call.
Heisler.
Aye.
Kinsella.
Aye.
Meyer.
Aye.
Holt.
Aye.
Anderson.
Aye.
Rudowitz.
Aye.
Carpenter. Hart.
Aye.
Silsby.
Aye.
Hayden. Martinson.
Aye.
Elmore.
Aye.
Schneider.
Aye.
Musgrove.
Aye.
Arlen.
Motion carries. Reports. I'd ask if there's no objection to put together the housing report, as receipts to date, fiscal year 2012 and 13, and the treasurer's report, City of Belleville funds and statement of cash and investments for December 2012. Your motion. Sorry. Look, I'm sorry, who made the, Dorothy made the motion, who made the second? Alderman Carpenter. Any discussion on those two reports to have them, accept them and file? All in favor of that motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. On to oral reports. Alderman Anderson.
Yes, Your Honor, on behalf of the Master Sewer Committee, I'd like to make a motion to award an engineering contract not to exceed $250,000 to Crawford, Murphy, and Tilly for the East Creek Wet Weather Pump Station project, and I so move.
Motion by Alderman Anderson. Who's the second? Second by Alderman Hayden. Any discussion? Roll call.
Heisler.
Aye.
Kinsella.
Aye.
Meyer.
Aye.
Holt. Anderson.
Aye.
Rudowitz. Carpenter.
Aye.
Hart.
Aye.
Silsby.
Aye.
Hayden.
Aye.
Martinson.
Aye.
Elmore.
Aye.
Schneider.
Aye.
Musgrove.
Aye.
Arlen.
Motion carries. I'd ask for a motion, first of all, to put it on the put on the floor, and then we'll have a little discussion, I'm sure. Motion for the next one, Alderman Meyer.
Your Honor, on behalf of the Economic Development Annexation Committee, I'd like to make a motion to approve the development agreement with Midwest Plumbing LLC for improvements in the 100 block of North 15th Street with the city offering services incentive. So moved.
Motion by Alderman Meyer, second. Here's a second by Alderman Silsby. Discussion. There's questions here first, because I thought, Eric, you have the development agreement in front of you. Why don't you, if you will, stand up a second. There was a couple of questions I think Mr. Hagberg raised. Might not be the time. First of all, ladies and gentlemen who are here who haven't heard this, and I think we probably had the discussion in committee. This property is the old Hearth plumbing site. And I guess it's fair to say in the last couple of years it had gone, Hearth had gone out of business. I don't have the exact date in front of me. And the property became pretty run down, and we had received a number of complaints about the lack of care of the property. I told the committee last week when we had, or whenever it was, we had a committee meeting when this first came up, that almost a year ago, 8-9 months ago, whatever it was, the first time that St. Paul's Home came to my office to discuss the possibility of building a new nursing facility and the question of staying in Belleville. One of the first items that they talked about to myself and Emily was the condition of this property as people came off of 17th Street and came over to E and went past this site that was really pretty horrific looking. I explained to them very quickly that David Churchloose, who was the youngest probably son, I guess, of the Hearth Plumbing, had taken, was in the process at that time of taking over his family's old location, his grandfather's home and the old business, and he was committed to turning it around and bringing his business, Midwest Plumbers, Inc., to that location. So they were happy to hear that. David then met with us. We met on site a couple times, and he was quick and aggressive to tell us, and he had to wait at first for a couple of those homes, I think, in foreclosure to even get possession, right, Eric? And so we couldn't move forward with, he fixed up a couple of them, and he wanted to demo a couple of them, but he had already spent, Eric, I think the development agreement says he's probably already invested over $50,000.
Correct.
He's made tremendous, it's very, 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 very apparent from anybody who is familiar with the site that he's made tremendous progress. When he came to us, he said, I could just use a little bit of help with the demolition. I'm going to be here. My business is going to be here. It's going to grow. And I'm committed. I got more I want to do on the property. I got more improvements. But this would really help me out so I could then take some of the money I won't have to spend on demolition. He's going to do a roof on the other house, I think, coming up, and some other repairs. And we reviewed it, and while it's kind of unique and it's not, mega jobs, but it's an example. We all get criticized sometimes for not working with small business. Here's an example that we're working with small business again. And we cleaned up an entranceway that really helped St. Paul's Home make a positive decision, and now since has made a final decision on reinvesting $27 million in that neighborhood and building a new nursing home and staying in Belleville. So this development agreement, while it's for $15,000, $15,000 is a lot of money. I don't deny that. But I believe, and we believe, the staff, and then it went to committee and passed, correct, Emily and Eric, that it was appropriate to bring it to the council tonight and ask for the approval because we believe it's already served a great purpose and that it's doing what we hoped it would do and stimulating some things in that neighborhood. And Dave's growing the business again and it's cleaned up. So that pretty well in a nutshell. Eric, anything you want to add?
No,
I guess I didn't know that you knew all the stuff about St. Paul, so that's why I started on the roll here. Okay, so that's the explanation as to how we got into this and where we're at. Philosophically, some of you may not think it's a good use of TIF money, but TIF money is approved to use removed blight, and demolitions are certainly appropriate, and the committee saw fit to bring it to council, so it's here now for a vote. We have a motion and a second by Alderman Meyer and by Alderman Silsby. Alderman Hayden, you have a question?
I don't have a problem with the agreement, Your Honor. I think that the question that Mr. Hagberg asked is that there's some confusing language in relation to demolition and asbestos surveys in one section and only demolition in another. So,
Eric, you want to explain that, or you want to amend the agreement?
I can amend it. That's not a problem.
If that's the choice of the two people making the motion, if you'd like us to amend that so that both lines reflect that it's asbestos abatement and inclusive of demolition. It's not to exceed 15,000, right?
Correct.
Anything over the 15,000, which I think it is slightly, he's going to pay the difference, 1,000 something.
The bids on the demolition were $16,080, I believe, and then there's the additional asbestos cost.
So he's going to pay that. So we'll amend that.
And then the other question that was raised in the public forum was paragraph B in relation that they will create one job. I would assume that we're stating that they're going to create a job in relation to that business or one
Yes.
job equivalent. And as long as that's understood or can be amended, I don't see.
No, he's already hard.
It's him. I mean, if he has more employees, but he wants to, just use that one.
That doesn't say create, it says
Retain.
Retain,
They have
but-
one employee currently, and it's Mr. Dersley's.
But I think he's already got another one he's hiring because his business is picking up. I mean, he will grow. I mean, that will be met. But I go back again. Had he, and I know it's a speculation, but had he not purchased his family's location, we were already in the process of starting some action on those buildings before he took over, just by the mere site, the location of the site. You know, so we probably would have, you know, eventually if nothing had been done, we'd have been in court over them anyway. And they were in foreclosure, and they probably would just deeded them over to us. So, I mean, he's working with us, he's bringing the business back, and I think he's going to do good for the location. He has a lot of serious feelings because that was his grandpa's, and he sees that place really coming back thriving. He has a lot of ambition, and I give him credit for that, and I think he's already made unbelievable strides. Yes, ma'am.
If I understand this correctly, we're talking about two houses that were built as residences. And have you heard how many other ones has he purchased that are in the neighborhood?
No, he purchased back the whole area there. There was his grandpa's house, there was an office.
I think there's one more
That
property
he's gonna renovate.
he wants to acquire.
He wants to acquire, it's in a foreclosure now, and he's going through the procedure to get it.
Okay, so my question is, we are calling this blight on individual properties, not a neighborhood, not even a block. We are singling this out as blight.
Well, I think staff, if I'm not mistaken, I would have to say that what we're looking at is we're looking at the property he owns or that he took over, and it was all blighted initially. Before he got anything going and started cleaning it up, I mean, he hauled stuff off with dump trucks, the trash and debris. And you know, and like I said, I think to take these couple of properties down, he's got plans for future growth. He's got plans to make some green space there, make the property improve. It's the overall, the blight is the overall project that we're looking at.
Well, that's an interesting interpretation. Do we have any other TIF agreements that say only retained jobs, not add jobs?
We've got hundreds of agreements over the years, and I'm sure there are some that are under retention.
Okay. We also have a contract currently going with looking at this as part of a historic district. How do these particular properties figure into that?
They don't, because it's a National Register Historic District, which is not under the purview of the Historic Preservation Commission and wouldn't be subject to any design review. It's just to allow for property owners to apply for federal tax credits.
Okay, let me ask you more specific questions. Were these two properties on the list?
They were in the overall study area.
Right.
I don't think that they were singled out as properties that were of historic value.
But you can't be certain of that. Okay, and I thought we also had an agreement with various historic societies to notify them before we knock down anything. But we're getting out of that by saying this is only a proposed historic district and so we're following the letter from the Superior Law.
I'd have to go back and see if those two parcels were considered strictly and non-contributing properties, but I don't think it was anything.
And the difference compared to a lot of these alderman is these are his properties. Now, if, you know, when he said he wants to take them down. He wants to continue to add to his business. He wants to continue to clean up that parcels that he owns, which it is. And so he just asked for some help and assistance as a small business owner. You know, it's not like we're taking them down. It's not like we would have certainly. It's his choice. It was his project. We simply listened and agreed to bring it forward and buy into it because one, there were many complaints by neighbors. I mean, I don't know how many are registered on file, but I know that I had verbal conversations with the general manager of Empire Comfort across the street. I had the conversations with St. Paul's Home. Dorothy had numerous, and I went by there several times and called Barfield, and Jenny was still there, about how bad the property looked, the trash and debris, etc. So what he's done already has been amazing. We just feel like this is an opportunity to assist a small business. He's making great strides. He brought his business, this small business, back to town. And we're talking about $15,000 to tear down these two structures that are his, and he has the right to do that.
Okay, do we have specific property by property bids on the asbestos part?
Each individual, each property was surveyed,
Okay,
and there are individual prices for those properties.
But with the asbestos, the total is $16,080, right?
It's a little above that,
Okay.
but I mean, the demolition bid itself is $16,080 for the two properties. I have to go back and look at my.
And he's agreed to pay anything over $15,000.
okay, I get that, I'm just wondering approximately how much that is. And you know, we actually have a guarantee they don't pay that.
Well, that will be property. I mean, but first of all, I think, this guy came to us and cleaned up a bad situation. I mean, there's got to be a little trust here. He's invested over $50,000 minimum already.
I understand that, but if he cannot afford another 15,
Well, what he's saying is, if we help him with this, he's going to continue to use his money and continue to grow the business. He's got more work he wants to do in the other house with a new roof and other things, and he's got plans. Based on what we've seen and witnessed so far, I believe he's going to do it.
well, a lot of people have good intentions, and
I understand that, but we're taking down two properties that have been sitting there that aren't so hot. And nobody else came forward and took over the old Hearth site. And like I said, we all agree that what progress he's made, it helped us secure St. Paul's home. They're ecstatic. They know that these other houses are coming down. They like what they see. They've since asked more questions. And I think we're moving in the right direction in that neighborhood. Empire Comfort bought the old property behind them recently and is cleaning it up. There's a lot of things that are starting to happen because of all there's some synergy starting to come about. And there's some communication with the city and these businesses kind of sharing what we know about all the good things that are starting to happen. We're going to eventually see that older area turn around. And then hopefully people will take advantage of the brewery historic tax credits, and we'll see more work and reinvestment. So I'm feeling pretty good about it. And like I said, this is a $15,000 TIF expenditure that I would recommend to the council that we approve tonight. But you certainly have a choice to vote against it.
well, I'm still a little unclear about the asbestos part of the bill. Because I know the portion for the one on East Washington for one home was almost $1,000. So is that what these are going to be in that neighborhood price? So we're talking about his portion might be up to $3,000?
It could be. We don't have it. It probably could be.
Maybe I've got it in the file. Yeah. It's certainly going to be billed to Mr. Dershowitz.
Okay.
And that's in the agreement.
He's aware of that there are going to be costs above and beyond $50,000.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second in reference to this recommendation from Economic Development. Yes.
I want to make sure, there was some confusion at the Finance Committee meeting in relation to these houses, because some people had concerns, about liens and things like that. There was no liens on these properties. These properties were added, my understanding, to the demolition. There was never any problem.
No,
with
there's
these
no,
properties.
we didn't take any action. He came to us.
Now,
Now,
there was some confusion out there, and I just want to make sure everybody understands.
we were in the process of trying to, before Dave came forward, it was on our radar screen, and when St. Paul's Home first came forward, we knew we had a troubled property there. And almost simultaneously, he called me one day and said, hey, I don't know if you've heard, but I'm in the process of taking over Grandpa's old home and business, and I'm bound and determined I'm going to turn it around and clean that mess up, because it makes me sick, it's made my mom sick, how bad it looks. And I said, wonderful, let's get together and talk. So we met twice or three times out there on site. In fact, it was probably one of Bobby Stable's first days on the job last year, wasn't it, Bobby? And we went and met on site and started talking about it. So, I mean,
There's no outstanding liens, outstanding debts to the city at all?
No, no.
And I just want to make sure that that was clarified, because there was some confusion on that.
No. Any other questions? Roll call.
Heisler.
Aye.
Kinsella.
Aye.
Meyer.
Aye.
Holt. Anderson.
Aye.
Rudowitz.
Aye.
Carpenter.
Aye.
Hart.
Aye.
Sillsby. Hayden.
Aye.
Martinson.
Aye.
Elmore.
Aye.
Schneider.
Present.
Musgrove.
Aye.
Arlen.
Motion carries. Alderman Cybers not here. Alderman Kinsella, would you make that motion?
Yes, on behalf of Streets and Grades, I have 3 motions to make. The first motion I make is to approve an annual service agreement with Quality Testing and Engineering, and I so move.
Motion by Alderman Kinsella, do I hear a second? Second by Alderman Sillsby. Discussion. Roll call.
Heisler.
Aye.
Kinsella.
Aye.
Meyer. Holt. Anderson.
Aye.
Rudowitz.
Aye.
Carpenter. Hart.
Aye.
Sillsby. Hayden.
Aye.
Martinson.
Aye.
Elmore.
Aye.
Schneider.
Aye.
Musgrove.
Aye.
Arlen.
Motion carries. Alderman Kinsella.
Second motion is to approve RJM Group Incorporated to continue to provide consulting services for the MS4 stormwater permit for $1,500 using TIP funds, and I so move.
Motion by Alderman Kinsella, second by Alderman Sillsby. Discussion on that topic. Roll call.
Heisler.
Aye.
Kinsella.
Aye.
Meyer. Holt. Anderson.
Aye.
Rudowitz.
Aye.
Carpenter.
Aye.
Hart.
Aye.
Sillsby.
Aye.
Hayden.
Aye.
Martinson.
Aye.
Elmore.
Aye.
Schneider.
Aye.
Musgrove.
Aye.
Arlen.
Motion carries. Alderman
Next
Kinsella.
motion is the approval of Peel Engineering in the amount of $36,752.88 for the First Street roadway improvements using CDBG funds, and I so move.
Motion by Alderman Kinsella, second by Alderman Sillsby. Discussion on that project. Roll call.
Heisler.
Aye.
Kinsella.
Aye.
Meyer. Holt. Anderson.
Aye.
Rudowitz.
Aye.
Carpenter.
Aye.
Hart.
Aye.
Sillsby. Hayden.
Aye.
Martinson.
Aye.
Elmore.
Aye.
Schneider.
Aye.
Musgrove.
Aye.
Arlen.
Motion carries. We have a solicitor's license request from Melissa J. Schaefer to solicit investment services for Edward Jones Company. What's your pleasure?
I move we grant this request.
Motion by Alderman Kinsella, second by Alderman Heisler. Any discussion? All in favor of this request signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Alderman Martinson.
Your Honor, on behalf of the Finance Committee, I have 4 motions to make. The first motion is to accept the lowest bid of $305,764.82 from Downing Sales for the purchase of 2 new sanitation trucks and approve financing of these trucks through Commerce Bank for 3 years at 1.98% interest. So moved, Your Honor.
Motion by Alderman Martinson. Do I hear a second?
Second, Your Honor.
Second by Alderman Heisler. Discussion. Roll call.
Heisler.
Aye.
Kinsella.
Aye.
Meyer. Holt. Anderson.
Aye.
Rudowitz.
Aye.
Carpenter. Hart.
Aye.
Sillsby. Hayden.
Aye.
Martinson.
Aye.
Elmore.
Aye.
Schneider.
Aye.
Musgrove.
Aye.
Arlen.
Motion carries.
Your Honor, motion number 2, to accept the low bid of $109,020 for Studs Excavating for the demolition of 13 properties. So moved, Your Honor.
Motion by Alderman Martinson, second by Alderman Meyer. Discussion.
Question, Mr. Flynn, can you give us a brief overview? Is this going to be your standard, we try to get money out of the owners if it's been foreclosed on kind of thing, or are there any special circumstances on any properties?
Anytime I think there's a viable defendant where we can obtain reimbursement, I attempt to do so.
Do you see that happening realistically on any of these, or is it, are you not familiar enough to give
Not offhand on any of these. I just know as a general rule, I look at them, if I can, I do.
That phrase in the contract. Okay. All right, thank you.
Okay, we have a motion? Yes.
Can I ask again, we have been in communication with the Belleville Historical Society that they have no concerns or issues with these properties?
Eric, did they get the list?
I'm not sure.
We have that, I know Jenny,
I don't know if it's
Or is there, yes, sir.
Mayor, I talked to Larry Betts, and he has not received a bit of information from the city.
Well, we should call him. He calls other times. I mean,
Well, this is our obligation for the elected officials.
And honestly, that is the last thing Mr. Betts said to me, was that Mr. Carpenter had furnished him with a couple of addresses. And I didn't have time to talk to him about any of these specifics today. Do you know if any of these, other than the first two we talked about, are in historic districts?
There.
they're not.
Okay, thank you.
I always check that, and if they are, I make sure that we do a design review request for the historic preservation.
Okay, thank you.
I mean, I did know that they were none of them in historic districts. But other than that, we didn't, you know, and Eric, you know, and Emily, and I guess also Bobby, the three of you who work on the demolitions, just make sure in the future that we send a copy, as we're moving this forward, any future demolitions, to the Belleville Historical Society and the St. Clair County Historical Society and Historical Preservation. And we can email all of them and just make sure that they're not out of the loop. But the ones that are in historic districts are the ones we traditionally have really monitored. Okay? We have a motion and we have a second, correct?
Yes.
Roll call.
Heisler.
Aye.
Kinsella.
Aye.
Meyer.
Aye.
Holt. Anderson.
Aye.
Rudowitz.
Aye.
Carpenter.
No.
Hart.
Aye.
Sillsby. Hayden.
Aye.
Martinson.
Aye.
Elmore.
Aye.
Schneider.
No.
Musgrove.
Aye.
Arlen.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Your Honor, I motion to approve a $300 expenditure to the Leadership Council of Southwest Illinois toward the nomination of Scott Air Force Base for the Aberdeen program. So moved, Your Honor.
Motion by Martinson, second by Alderman Hayden. Discussion. Roll call.
Heisler.
Aye.
Kinsella.
Aye.
Meyer. Holt. Anderson.
Aye.
Rudowitz.
Aye.
Carpenter. Hart.
Aye.
Sillsby.
Aye.
Hayden.
Aye.
Martinson.
Aye.
Elmore.
Aye.
Schneider.
Aye.
Musgrove.
Aye.
Arlen.
Motion carries.
Your Honor, I motion to approve the budget amendments as recommended by the Finance Director. So moved, Your Honor.
Motion by Alderman Martinson,
Second, Your
second by Alderman Heisler, to approve the budget amendments. Discussion. Roll call.
Heisler.
Aye.
Kinsella.
Aye.
Meyer.
Aye.
Holt. Anderson.
Aye.
Rudowitz.
Aye.
Carpenter.
Aye.
Hart.
Aye.
Sillsby.
Aye.
Hayden.
Aye.
Martinson.
Aye.
Elmore.
Aye.
Schneider.
Aye.
Musgrove.
Aye.
Arlen.
Motion carries. We have no communications this evening. We have no petitions. Resolution.
Resolution number 3123. A resolution resolving that the city of Belleville requests permission from the Illinois Department of Transportation to temporarily close Route 13 on Sunday, March 24, 2013, from 10:50 a.m. until noon for the Allied Auto Racing Association 5K run.
Okay. Let me back up, Mr. Turner. I'd first like to ask for a motion to read by title only Resolution 3123 and 3124. Motion by Alderman Kinsella, second by Alderman Sillsby. All in favor of reading those two resolutions by title only? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. We already read the first one. If there's no questions, let's go ahead and take a vote. Do I have a motion to approve 3123? Motion by Alderman Sillsby. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Second by Alderman Martinson. Do I hear discussion? Roll call.
Heisler.
Aye.
Kinsella.
Aye.
Meyer. Holt. Anderson.
Aye.
Rudowitz.
Aye.
Carpenter.
Aye.
Hart.
Aye.
Sillsby.
Aye.
Hayden.
Aye.
Martinson.
Aye.
Elmore.
Aye.
Schneider.
Aye.
Musgrove.
Aye.
Arlen.
Motion carries. At this time, read the next one.
Resolution number 3124. A resolution amending the annual budget of the city of Belleville, Illinois for the fiscal year beginning on the first day of May 2012 and ending on the 30th day of April 2013.
Motion by Alderman Sillsby, second
Second.
by Alderman Heisler to the resolution 3124. Any other discussion? Roll call.
Heisler.
Aye.
Kinsella.
Aye.
Meyer.
Aye.
Holt. Anderson.
Aye.
Rudowitz.
Aye.
Carpenter.
Aye.
Hart. Sillsby. Hayden.
Aye.
Martinson.
Aye.
Elmore.
Aye.
Schneider.
Aye.
Musgrove.
Aye.
Arlen.
The Motion carries. Ordinances, I ask for a motion to read by title only. Ordinances 7665, 7666, and 7667. Motion by Alderman Silsby. Second by Alderman Martinson. To read those three ordinances as just stated by title only. All in favor of that motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Let's do the first one.
Ordinance number 7665, an ordinance regarding case number 74, accountability.
Motion by Alderman Silsby, second by Alderman Kinsella to approve case number 7665, to the ordinance number 7665, it's zoning case 74 from December 12th. Any discussion? Roll call.
Heisler.
Aye.
Kinsella.
Aye.
Meyer. Holt. Anderson. Rudowitz. Carpenter. Hart. Sillsby. Hayden. Martinson. Elmore. Schneider. Musgrove. Arlen.
Motion carries. The next one.
Ordinance 7666, an ordinance approving the final plat of Concordia Farms.
Motion by Alderman Silsby, do I hear a motion? Second by Alderman Martinson, do I hear discussion? Roll call.
Heisler.
Aye.
Kinsella. Meyer. Holt. Anderson. Rudowitz. Carpenter. Hart. Sillsby. Hayden. Martinson. Elmore. Schneider. Musgrove. Arlen.
Motion carries.
Ordinance number 7667, an ordinance amending chapter 13, Belleville property. I'm sorry.
33.
33, yes. Belleville Property Maintenance Code by amending portions of sections thereof.
First of all, I hear a motion to put on the floor. Motion by Alderman Meyer, second by Alderman Kinsella. Okay, hang on a second. There's a number of questions raised. Mike, do you want to attempt to answer the big changes, go over the changes that we have? First of all, let's do that, maybe we can clarify something.
I guess I'll just make a couple of general comments. The purpose of the amendment really is to clarify the existing occupancy permit requirement by clarifying exactly what information is required by the applicant, and that would be helpful to the applicant and also to the housing department. With or without the passage of this amendment, there's still going to be a requirement of an occupancy permit in the city of Belleville, so that's not going to be eliminated. The other misperception that seems to also be present is that the city of Belleville is the only municipality that has an occupancy permit, and that is simply not the case. Almost every municipality in the area has an occupancy permit requirement similar to what is required here in the city of Belleville. In fact, even the county has an occupancy permit requirement, and what they do, they contract with a number of the smaller communities and enforce that occupancy requirement in the smaller communities. So with or without this ordinance, we're going to have an occupancy permit requirement. The only purpose is to attempt to clarify what information is being obtained from the applicant, which is going to be helpful to the housing department from an enforcement standpoint.
Director Sable, would you mind just for a second if we ask you just a couple of questions? A couple of things that were raised. Actually what we're doing with this, as you and I talked for some time, is we're actually extending the time period. There's no time period right now. And so we're giving them up to a year if someone has a child or adopts to report it. So we're making it more lenient. In regards to some of the concerns, your department has executed and exercised their word discretion. And when there's a need, we're not looking for people who are on vacation or visiting grandma.
No. I look at it differently as what it calls for in the ordinance as far as residing and visitors. I look at that as two different things.
So
the visitor is not residing. Even if you have an overnight guest, I would consider them being a resident of that apartment or rental or house.
Okay. Chief Clay, you and I talked a little bit about this.
Really, those, I haven't heard any real complaints that I would address, and the only thing I would talk about was whether or not we wanted to go to a occupancy permit that only looks at numbers and doesn't look at who was there. I know that is an issue with a lot of people as far as privacy rights, and they feel that we shouldn't necessarily delve into that and know who's there or not. And if that is your position, I'm not here to try to knock that down, because that's important to people. I look at it from the standpoint as law enforcement, as what we use it for, and what we would do with that. And how we address it, and what we look for is, some of the things we have is, if we get disturbance calls, so we have to go to a place. Or we get repeated calls, as you alluded to, in terms of who's living in the place. If you're gonna take numbers to the police department and say this person and 5 people can live there, in effect, what you've done is said in a practical sense with the police department, if we go to try to enforce some kind of occupancy, the only thing we're looking at is numbers. A transient situation can set up where you can have people in and out, different people, it doesn't matter. Because I'm not gonna know. The police officer's not gonna know. All they're gonna know is we come there, there's 5 people there, 5 people there, 4 people there. That's fine, we leave. The complaints we have from the citizens is that this place is a shelter or a boarding house. They have people in and out, different people, and they're causing problems. We're able to assess that, at least by knowing who you have identified on your occupancy permit. We can then look at that and say, well, you say you have these 4 people living here, and this is the relationship, and now if we come and we see 6 people living there, or different people living there on an occupancy permit, we can take action to try to rectify that problem. And we have done so in a number of instances as the police department. So it's helped us in that regard. If you have strictly numbers, you do allow for, and to have the ability to have whomever you want to have in the house, and if that's what you want as a privacy right issue, that's fine. But you cannot look at the police department to say, solve the problem of transients coming in and out, that somebody's turned this into a boarding house, somebody's turned this into a homeless shelter by having people in here that's subletting, they have all these people in and out of here, and the complaints are to us for disturbances and everything else that happens when you have that kind of movement. We will not be able, as a police department, to enforce that. But we would not try because it's not there anymore. I don't have the ability to ask that question, we wouldn't do it. On another note, and this is a little off, you guys have just introduced a crime-free housing draft. And in that, you have provisions in there for certain background checks. And you provide in there that if a person is 18 years or older and resides in that residence, that they have to provide certain information, do an extensive background, and you want to list all of them. The children are exempted from that, or people that are 17 and under are exempted from that. If you remove the requirement for names of who's staying there from the occupancy permit, then you're going to have to go back and revisit your crime-free housing ordinance because you're collecting that very data, but you're not collecting it on people that are 17 and below. But you are collecting that information on people that's 18 and above. So you've got a conflict there. If we're not going to have that information, or the housing department's not going to collect it, how are we going to, as a police department, or who's ever charged with this, going to be able to put those two together to say who should be in here and who shouldn't be? We won't have the ability to do that. So that's some of the things that you have to think about. Other municipalities that we spoke to on this matter, and we've never had this problem, and I'm not saying we ever used it like that. They actually have the names and so forth, as they do it for disaster preparedness things. They want to know if they have some man-made disaster and so forth. Like I said, we never had it. And they have a provision or an area or geographical location in the city that is hit or struck by something. They go back and they pull all those names and they set that up, and then they start trying to account for those people that should have been in that area. So that's another way you could use it. We haven't used that, please, we never had a situation. I'm just telling you some of the things I've learned from different municipalities when we were looking at how they use their occupancy permits. The school system, District 118, does not require that you present an occupancy permit from the city of Belleville, but they do require 3 different forms of
Proof of residence.
proof that you reside there. They push heavily for the occupancy permit from Belleville. They absolutely value that first and foremost. And as a matter of fact, they had required that exclusively, not exclusively, but with the others, it had to be one of the forms of identification or papers that you turned in until they were told that they can't do that because the state lists a series of things that are acceptable. So you can't pick and choose and say it's going to be that one plus 2 from there. You have to do what the state says, and they said, well, you can't do that. It can be Belleville's occupancy permit with 3 other forms of identification that you have. So this comes down, there are practical applications that we use it for. We use it, you would have problems right now if you have sex offenders, or if you have parolees and probation people. We do checks 4 months a year on these people. Not so much as the people that reside in Belleville. We know where they're supposed to be. But what it is for those who would now come in on a transient basis, reside in Belleville, but they're in compliance with the number of people who reside. We would have no way as a police department of knowing whether that was, the case or not. So there are some practical applications as far as law enforcement. But again, that is something that you have to weigh as far as is privacy, not having that privilege of not revealing that. If that weighs more to you than this side of it, I understand that. I'm not trying to argue to make you change that. I'm just telling you as a police department how we use it. So there are some practical applications for this.
Thank you, Chief. And I go back, and Bob Stapleton and I have had these discussions, and Jenny Gain prior to him. We do use, I believe the department uses good discretion. We're being fair. We're not looking for people who are staying overnight. When there are situations, it's very clear when there's an occupancy violation, the police do make a call. The people are cooperating. They're usually, we don't force our way in there. But when it's evident that all their worldly goods are there, and they're not on the occupancy, then we need to know. The other thing you get into, folks, if there's no occupancy limit, I talked to the fire chief today. We see right now, when you go to some of these cases, and Chief Panay, you want to add to this?
I'll address any questions you have.
Well, I mean, I think the chief and I talked today very briefly that the concern is if you removed occupancy, which like Mike Flynn just said, that's not the vote here tonight. It's just to amend what we currently have. And we're actually making it much more flexible. But the value of occupancy, you have some people who will not use good discretion, and you have a house that's suited for 4 people, and with no checks and balances, you have 10 people there. If there is a fire, the danger becomes greater. When there's not the square footage and use for people, and unfortunately we see that from time to time throughout our country or throughout our state. We're trying to make sure people are safe. Unfortunately, some individuals and some landlords don't really seem to be safety first. But we don't want to be on the national news for disastrous situations. We're not trying to govern everybody, and I don't want to know who's sleeping with who. That's not at all the intent of this. The intent of this is to know how many people, if you have neighbors that call housing or call the police department on a repeated basis because a property next to them or in their neighborhood is extremely overcrowded, that puts a negative impact on everything from parking to trash to everything under the sun. not to mention safety and health conditions sometimes in the home. And that's why we have occupancy. And it's worked, and as Mike, the city attorney just stated, we're far from the only city that has it. It's all around us, and it's been a tool for a long time. Sir?
But we're the only one that's asking who's living in the house. The county, they'll come out and do the inspection to make sure the property's safe, and I agree with that. I don't think it's the city's business who's living in our house. That's an invasion of our privacy. It's a constitutional right.
But you understand the chief's concern. Some of them are rotating constant, where...
We're not the only ones.
We're not the only one that does it either.
Granite City. I have their forms here.
Well, I like the idea about if one of the issue by the square footage of your house and figure out how many people can live there and just go with that for privacy.
On the square footage, here's what I'm saying. If you do it by space, or you do it by space and names, or whatever, I understand it. That's I can see that people will have some issues with that because a lot of people in here, good people, they talk about just the privacy, and I understand that. They think it's just too much to provide that information. I'm not here to try to convince you on that. I'm saying as a police chief, how the police department uses it, how effective it has been for us. It's not the only thing we do. Some of the things that people do or certain other municipalities, we've never done. We've just never had a situation like that that would arise to that. I can see that it could be helpful. But what we do is we just use it when we get a call or to a place and they're talking about either people are in and out on a transient basis or there's too many people in the home, and then we go there and we try to determine who should be in the house and who's not. If you just did it by numbers, I'd go by and we do a count. We say, okay, there's 4 people here. I'm good. We'll leave. If that's the policy that you want to have, you've got 4 people there. But then if you call me as a complainant and say, well, that's not the 4 people that was there that was last week. That's 4 different people. You cops got it wrong. You're not doing nothing. We call contact. I want you to go out there and do something. That's when we run into the problems. I don't know how to fix that for you with just numbers. All I can do is count heads. And so if you do something like that, that's the consequences or the benefit, depending on what side you're on or where this is. But it is an effective tool for us under certain circumstances. It's not the end-all, be-all. I mean, there's still ways around the occupancy permit, and people do it all the time. And and that's why these tickets are issued. So, but we're not the only city that does ask for that information. And as a matter of fact, I was interested in that, and I wanted to see. Some don't in the metro. Some just ask for numbers, but some ask for numbers and who's there and relations.
So Granite City is the only other city other than us?
Granite City is one. Yeah, I got them.
Yeah.
Shiloh is also, Shiloh asked for it as well. They ask for theirs and relationships and ages, and they do the same thing. And I just got blank forms so that you guys can take a look at that. Belleville's are similar to that.
Alderman Arlen, I believe you had a comment, right?
I agree with that.
Thank you, Chief. I appreciate
Anything
it. Okay, Alderman Arlen.
I was just going to comment that I think that people take advantage of these things. And when I bought a place across the way, I didn't, 4 people lived there, and I went after we bought it. I went through it, and there were 10 cots, beds in the basement, and I think that we have to be aware of what's going on in these buildings. So that's what I found.
Any other alderman? Alderman Hayes and Jerry. Your Honor.
I have some serious concerns with the wording. Tonight, some of the people that spoke for this, one of the key things that we need to keep in mind was they said these rental houses across the street. I understand completely what the intent is here. I myself have had to deal with some of these concerns, not only the health and safety concerns, but the overcrowding. People come into the houses, we don't know who they are, causing disturbances, committing crimes at the police force has to deal with. But you start mixing that with rental and home-owned. We're trying to find a one-shoe-fits-all. We know what the problem is, but when I read, in the case, and this is for owner or renter, in the case where there's a birth or an adoption, and you grew up not too far from me. We all grew up where we had homes where you had two brothers in the same room, two brothers in bunk beds. Now, by the way this law is written, if we say that this person who lives in this house, they've invested in the city of Belleville, they've decided to move here, and they buy this house, and we say by square footage, you're allowed 4 people. Now, are the realtors going to have to disclose that information? Because if they have mom and dad, son and daughter, 4 people, and all of a sudden now they're going to have another child, or they have a tragedy in their family where their brother or sister dies and they have to adopt a child.
And we've worked with people in those situations.
Your Honor, no, you can't work with it. Then we're making exceptions to the law. It is very clear here that it states as is written. Now, I believe if we start making exceptions and picking and choosing, we're going to get ourselves in even worse trouble. It states that they have 1 year. What we're telling the people, homeowned and invested in this city of Belleville, that you have 1 year to add on to your house, not take the child or grandma, if you want grandma or mom to move in with you instead of putting into a nursing home, and or move. Now we got people, Your Honor, moving out of this city because of crime and fears. And now we're going to tell people, don't come and invest in Belleville because you may have a limit or you need to move within 1 year. If you go over that limit, this could very easily, Your Honor, be the nail in the coffin of trying to vitalize the housing stock in the city of Belleville. And quite frankly, as a person that respects his rights and amendments, this is not, I know what we're trying to do, but we can do better. This is not going to do what we need to do. It is almost un-American. It is certainly, almost to the point where
the way the ordinance currently is, Alderman Hayden, it basically says immediately they must turn it in. So what we're doing in here is we're giving everybody. It doesn't say it.
Well, I didn't read that.
It says any change, so that without reference to any particular time, that change in and of itself would trigger a requirement for other occupancy.
Okay, so we run in, let's play with, just let me finish with this scenario, then I'll be more than glad to give it more to anybody, okay? But, well, I'm talking about my time. I'm not here to debate that. It's not, it's smirk. I'm trying to be thoughtful and honest with the concerns that I see here. Now, you've got the same scenario, 4 people, and the square footage, Your Honor, is 5. There's no anything in here that says, oh, well, that's a good family over there. We're not going to bother the Smiths. We can't do that, especially if the neighbor who doesn't maybe like the Smiths calls and says, they're above it. They just had a child. Now, within a year, if you're saying we're giving them a year, even at the time, and they had to move, you're asking people who own a home in this city, that invested in this city, you're telling them they have to move. And I can assure you, Your Honor, that I guarantee you, they're not going to get what they're going to, but they paid for their house, they're not going to get what the property tax assessor says their house is worth when they try to sell it. We have no guarantee that they're even going to stay in Belleville. And now we got people that we're forcing out of the city of Belleville. Good and decent home families that have
lived in this city, have done nothing wrong. All they want to do is raise their children.
So will you agree if we were to revisit putting in a written variance request if somebody gets in that situation, a process, how they can approve, to go through for a variance? Because your comments are about crime, and we're hearing you.
Yes,
but I will tell you, if we remove the occupancy in general, if that's the alternative.
I don't want to move it in general.
Okay, but that's what some have said. And to remove the occupancy, I believe, would be a terrible mistake. Now, we felt like we were relaxing this and being more reasonable. If you want to look at the absolute, I can see where maybe some language should still be added, that there's a variance process we could offer. But that would be if there's a hardship or something, they'd have to go back before, I don't know that's the zoning board's appropriate place, but something similar, there'd be a review of what they might, well, maybe the zoning board is. But my point is, we're not trying to run people out of their homes.
I know what we're after.
But we're trying to make sure that unsafe, unhealthy conditions, that the number of occupancy in a particular dwelling doesn't get out of hand, like many people report to us on a regular basis. Mr. Brown, you had ample time. I gave you 10 minutes tonight.
You gave him a chance to talk.
I just had a question about the wording, because it sounds like the problem is number of occupants and I'm reading the wording, and there is no wiggle room on this. Shall also identify the individuals authorized to reside in said dwelling unit. There's no bend there. And then the last one, which just concerns me, just future litigation, the only individuals authorized to reside in a dwelling unit shall be the individuals listed on the occupancy permit. Only is pretty definite.
Well,
only doesn't give us a case-by-case
well,
scenario.
and I think from that standpoint, and I thought about that today, while we've always been understanding people can have friends, visitors, people vacation, have situations. But it's when the police show up because there's a complaint and it's very obvious that the person's worldly goods are moved into that residence. They're getting mail at that residence. They've taken up household living conditions in that residence. This is what we're talking about. Now, can we do a little bit better on words? Okay, you've proven that we can always do a little bit better on some wording, and for that we can go back. But I caution us that we don't want to remove the occupancy important tool that we have. We're not trying to hurt families. For example, you mentioned about the exchange students. Yeah, I did go, and I made notification when the exchange student came and stayed at my house for 3 months, because I figured I'd be a target by somebody just to go check. But now when they come for a week or two, I don't do that. It's not the case. That's a short-term stay. When they were here for a whole semester, I went down and added them to the occupancy permit. And I only did that because I figured I would be targeted. I think we got to use common sense. First of all, when you have an exchange student program, the exchange student group goes checks out that family first of all, and they won't put a child into a situation that there's not adequate living space and they have their own room and all that kind of stuff. They won't bring a student over here and assign them to one of our high schools if they haven't done their homework. So there's some checks and balances there.
They don't go into the home, they just ask you.
Well, they feel very confident. In some cases, they have gone into the home when they don't know anything about the people and they don't know anything about circumstances, because they are taking the responsibility of putting a youth into someone's home that's total stranger.
But we have no definition of temporary.
Well, then here's what I will ask. Mr. Brown, you're not a member of this council. You've had
There's some information that you need right now.
Well, here's what, if you listen a minute, I'm going to suggest that we table this and that we do take a look at the length. Now, I'm 110% that we continue to do what we're doing here tonight, but can we improve a little bit of the language? I think we probably can. Just listening, I think we probably can. But, and for that, then why don't you get us your concerns write your additional ones down, and you send them to.
I got two right now.
Okay, we're not gonna change the ordinance tonight. We're not gonna amend it on site. I think it needs a little bit more, but we need to do it quickly, and we need to get it back to this council. So I would ask for that this time, that we have a motion to table it for not more than 30 days. If it has to go to committee, not more than 30 days, and that we bring it back with some language that might be better suited to address some of the concerns tonight.
I'll make that
We
motion.
have
on the table, John.
Meyer and.
Hold it. We've made the motion. Let me ask them if they would agree to table it for up to 30 days. No longer. And I only say that because I think it might need to go back to committee and we got to work that out. Okay, okay.
I want this voted on. I really do want this voted on. Because this is a relaxation of the rules we currently have.
Okay, and then the other side of the coin is we can certainly bring it back, Alderman Hayden, go right back to the housing committee and ask for these additional changes to be made, and we'll start that process immediately. That's the other way we can do it.
So what happens,
We still have an ordinance in effect tonight if we do nothing, okay?
I understand.
So what we're doing by doing this, it's going to be an ordinance with more relaxation and consideration than we have currently.
That's debatable. But what happens after a year and the person doesn't move?
I think that's what has to be talked about in the variance process.
I mean, are we gonna start finding good and decent people who just had an extra
It's
kid?
not our intent to do that, and I think we can explain that, or we can put the verbiage in there. I think it's when you turn around and on a regular basis, the numbers continue to climb, and we have a large number of people living in a dwelling now that we originally we assumed there was originally approval for 4, and now we turn around and there's 8 or 9. And we do have some situations like that, and we do have good citizens who are very aggravated, and they do call because they have this ongoing dilemma of more people living and impacting a neighborhood way over the limit of what's supposed to be there. And that's what this ordinance is about, and it's about trying to help our good property owners not get frustrated and want to leave because we're turning a blind side to what, so I think, I think if you want to go back and propose some things.
We pass this tonight, Your Honor, and then we go back and propose things. We're piecemealing it together, and that's why I have a right. I have a right to make a motion to postpone this for 30 days and send it back to the other committee to let's get these things together. And if there's a second, we can vote on the motion postpone. And I would hope that the members of this council would be good and decent to say, let's send it back. And let's get it better.
But understand, by not passing this tonight, you're leaving stricter requirements on the occupancy for people than you are by passing this.
I don't understand. I have a question about my previous question. I don't understand how the word "the only" individuals relaxes it. I just don't understand that. What says "the only"? The only means
only.
The only. How is that relaxing? And I'm not trying to be a smart mouth or anything. I'm just saying the only just doesn't give us that case-by-case military family comes in, or somebody, a guy has a new girlfriend that has 2 children and so he's got a 1-bedroom apartment, whatever. I mean, the only means the only. And I can't imagine why 2 weeks, 30 days of discussion when nothing has been changed on this ordinance in years, what could 30 days possibly hurt?
You got occupants as the parent of said child, where it probably should be parent or guardian. I mean, there's a lot of other words in there that needs to be corrected.
I do not want to do away with the occupancy permit. I haven't heard anybody say anything about doing away with the occupancy permit. I am not insinuating that whatsoever.
We got one more.
Alderman Turner was next in here. Alderman Turner. He was Alderman Turner. Treasurer Turner.
8 years ago. My remarks have to do only with the names on the occupancy permit. I'm making no comments about any of the other things. In sewer trash collection, names on the occupancy permit are important. We have an ordinance that says that you cannot get occupancy permits, inspections, those things, when you are in debt to the city. Without names, people can move from one establishment to another and leave a huge bill here, and you have no way of checking it.
And then we're not protecting the taxpayers again.
Well, we,
Alderman Schneider.
thank you. We have ordinances now that we can't even enforce. I have derelict cars in my ward that they can't do anything with. They haul them off, bring them back, and they're, it's horrible looking. We have the building at Wade Square, where when you walk where the restaurant was, you've got pieces of that top falling down onto the sidewalk. It's gonna fall on someone's head. We can't even make the owners take care of businesses like that. And here we're trying to take care of saying if you have a baby, if that's the part what I'm upset about, it's nobody's business. Years ago, people lived in homes. What would have we done if the Arden family would have stayed here? Their house, I'm sure there's no house in the city of Belleville that would take, 13, 14 kids and the 2 adults. We're telling people they have to move, or God forbid, if they know about it beforehand, the woman has to go get an abortion. It's not right.
I think, okay, Alderman Carpenter, you haven't commented yet, we're gonna go to.
I'd just like to say, this basically to me sounds like a local census taking, just local level. It sounds like it'd probably be beneficial to some landlords. Now I got a couple questions for the chief. With the police, could they issue a citation if there's people there and they're not listed on the, and they say they live there and the police are in there and said, well, I live here and they're not listed, can the police issue a citation that will force them to show up here, or?
If right now, the way it is, if we have names, yes, we can issue a citation when we go on a call and have a reason to be there. If we didn't have the names, again, I'm just telling you from a practical point, we can only look at the numbers. And that's all I would look at. If it says 5 people could be there, or 4 people could be there, we'll look at it, 4 or less than that. We're good with it, because I won't be able to ask you your name anyway, unless we're there for some kind of criminal call, or we're doing an investigation and a follow-up. But if we're doing a noise disturbance, a complaint, or somebody says there's too many people living in this residence, and that's what we get most of the time. There's too many people in there, or there's people in and out. They're changing up the transits and so forth. We go by those kind of things, and that's where we look right now, and the occupancy permit tells us, at least on the last occupancy permit, who should be there, and we enforce on a local basis.
The other thing I want to know is about the school district. Would this be beneficial to the school district? It kind of sounded like this would be another tool they could use as far as the list of all the people.
On the school,
well, you said that the school district.
The school district does that, and we were just looking at how they use it. It's beneficial to them. They do encourage that. They can't enforce you to bring an occupancy permit from Belleville or any other.
As a requirement.
But they like to have that as one of the pieces. They have to have 3 pieces of identification or certification to show where you live, and they always try to force to get that as one of the pieces with the other 2. Like you have billing or something like that. And those
well, it sounds like that would be good as a supplemental way for the school district. That's all.
Okay.
Your Honor.
Yes.
Just to answer Tim, having been in administration, that's one of the criticisms the schools get, is that there are kids in the school that shouldn't be in the school because they're traveling from other communities, and with them being on the occupancy permit, then you have an opportunity to check those people who are here and supposed to be. Otherwise, they are draining the resources of those kids who are already here. The other thing is, and I understand where we're going with this, and I agree we need to take a look at it. And I understand of getting it passed now, and I know the committee's had time to spend some time. I would think that we could take at least 30 days to take a look at this, to refine any language that we want to make sure, so when we do it, we can get it done. I mean, I understand we're not going to change the intent of what we want to do, but why do the thing 2 times? If we're going to do some changing and looking at it and make sure that the wording is what we want, it's not going to please anybody, no matter what we try to do. But it will allow us to make sure that what we've done is exactly what we want to do and do some tweaking to it.
Do we need a second motion?
There's right now it's just original motion on the floor. I've not accepted another backup motion yet. Hang on. Okay. Normally, I won't allow the public participation, or we'd be out of control here. But in fairness, the last time tonight, Leotis, you raised your hand. I'm not going to ever do this again. But do you have a question that's pertinent? Because I didn't mean to close you off. We had two already that opened up.
I think we're making great progress in the right direction. I think we need to re-examine the situation. We don't want to create more of a problem here. But my concern goes back to the point of the foxes who's going to be watching the chicken coop. Until we get some officers over there who's going to do the right thing, and there's no disparity in the application, we're going to have problems.
Now, Leonis, we've talked, and we've got a variety, and we've got diversity, and we're going to continue to
wait
wait
on a decision on my occupancy.
Mr. Brown, you've had your time.
No, I didn't have my time. These two got to comment from here. I get to comment.
No, I'm the chair of the meeting, and you've had ample time, and usually you're cursing and everything. It cusses you a little bit. Alderman Holt?
I understand the point of occupancy permits, we keep using safety. I fail to understand how your officers are going to be any safer when faced with a toddler whose birth certificate is registered with the city versus one whose birth certificate is not.
I'm not switching to federal.
That's just,
Absolutely not.
but honestly, I feel what we are trying to do. The square footage is not a law. It is a guideline. We are imposing white, middle-class values on people of other cultures who may want to come here. We are saying, in my opinion, that bedroom is too small for you to put 3 kids in. Even if they may have perfectly clean, safe children and arrangements that meet their culture. We are imposing things that don't fit anymore. We are a homogenous society. This doesn't work anymore. We all did grow up with friends who had 3-bedroom homes with 5 boys in 1 bedroom, 4 girls in the other bedroom, and 1 bathroom in the whole house. They grew up to be productive, safe, clean citizens. We're imposing an archaic system in order to gain control. There is way too much opportunity for bad to happen, and it far outweighs the good. You haven't said at all how these people's birthdays are going to be safeguarded. Identity theft is a huge issue. We have a very archaic computer system. You cannot guarantee me, if I have the name and birthday of every resident in the city of Belleville, that it cannot be a system that is hacked into and used to destroy some of those people's credit. It just won't work. What benefit are we gaining by having a birthday? And you said we're not asking who's sleeping with who, but when it specifically says you must name the relationship, you are asking about their sex life. There's no other way around it. And it's nobody's business.
I make a motion, Your Honor, to postpone for 30 days and send it back to committee and have a transcript of various concerns this evening brought to the committee's attention to be revised.
I'll second.
Alderman Meyer, were you going to say something? Okay, so we need to vote on the amendment first. Motion to table first. We're going to take a motion, a roll call vote for that. I vote is to table it for up to 30 days and to try to fine tune the language. But understanding, once again, real clearly, this does not in any way affect the current ordinance. And at this time, the ordinance still stands as it is. We have occupancy. It just doesn't make any changes at this time as was presented tonight. Roll call.
Who was the second?
Second was Alderman Hayden and Alderman Holt made the second.
Heisler.
Aye.
Kinsella.
Aye.
Meyer.
Aye.
Holt. Anderson.
Aye.
Rudowitz.
President.
Carpenter.
Aye.
Hart.
Aye.
Silsby.
Aye.
Hayden.
Aye.
Martinson.
Aye.
Elmore.
Aye.
Schneider. Musgrove.
Aye.
Arlen.
Okay, the ayes have it, and We now have to technically still vote on the motion, right? No, we don't have to, I'm sorry. It's been so much discussion here, my mind's a little foggy. Okay, so we will table this for 30 days. I would suggest, or I would ask, that anybody who has any suggestions in writing, to forward them to Health and Housing. We'll take them to committee, we'll distribute them, we'll announce, it'll be, the first Wednesday of February is going to be here before we know it, so it'll be back on the agenda that night to have a discussion about, and in the meantime, we'll take a look at some of this language and see if we can address some of the concerns that were raised here tonight.
So do you see this going just to Health and Housing and coming back to council, or do you see them also going to ordinance and legal committee?
I don't know that we have to run it into two committees. We've made this very public, we've had a lot of open discussion. I think Health and Housing and the officers and all of us need to take the discussion here tonight and see if we can come back with that committee with some verbiage that might be more pleasing and be more acceptable to all. I don't think we need to run it back to another committee. Mike, is there any legal reason why to? He's an open book. Mr. Consillo is the head of Health and Housing Committee.
I'm sorry, when's the next time it's going to be discussed then?
It'll be discussed at Health and Housing on the first Wednesday of the month at 6 p.m., Ken? And is it upstairs or in this room? We'll make it in this room. We'll make it in this room. 6 o'clock meeting, I think, isn't it, Ken? 6 o'clock meeting, okay? So, that motion passed to table it for 30 days. We're on now with, that was the last of the ordinances, Mrs. Fields. Any unfinished business besides that? Yes, ma'am.
What is the status of the
Mr. Flynn wrote a letter and told them that did they get the stuff in, Emily? Bethany Place?
No, I've actually even called their attorney yesterday and again today to inquire as to why they haven't submitted something that we have not returned by code. Because I expected it Friday.
Well, I thought you had said you thought it would be about...
Friday was the date we gave them.
Okay.
We don't hear anything by this week, we'll have to write them and tell them that we're going to ask them to cease and desist the program. And we'll notify the state as well. All in hand.
The Kroger ruler that would be on tonight, wasn't there? An update on that?
Kroger, as they explained, and I think we explained it in committee, had to go back to their board of directors, and they didn't know timing-wise if they could get now. As it turned out, we sent the agenda out at noon on Friday, and Eric got word probably...
I got the final comments today.
Huh?
I got the final comments today.
So it's going to be on the next agenda?
I sent it to Mr. Flynn's office for their review.
Okay, so we didn't hear back from the attorneys until after the packets were out. That's why it wasn't, and we knew that that was a possibility. So, yes, sir.
I'd like to talk about the Kroger deal. That's all right, this is unfinished. I'm totally against handing out $200,000 to of our city tip money to Kroger Rural Foods. This is because they're using the city money to help finance the building of a new rural food store that is one city block away from Farm Fresh Milk Store and Belleville Farmers Market. By voting no on this is our local authority to have oversight to protect any existing local businesses from a large corporation trying to basically put them out of business. The farmers market and the Farm Fresh are right next to each other, and they both complement each other's businesses greatly, I must say, because one place offers things that the other place doesn't have, and they've been there for a long time, both places. I just think that alderman who vote to hand out the $200,000 to Kroger would be jeopardizing two well-established marketplaces. If Kroger wanted to build somewhere else in town that wasn't adjacent to two local small businesses, I wouldn't have a problem handing out the tip money, but this is not the case.
Okay, we appreciate your comments. Anyone else tonight? If not, I'm asking for a motion to approve motor fuel claims in the amount of $3,914.32. Do I hear a motion?
So moved.
Motion by Alderman Martinson, second by Alderman Heisler. Any other discussion on motor fuel claims? It could be anywhere from $50,000. It just depends on how the bills, the timing of the month, and the way the bills come in.
Yeah, with
Roll call.
Heisler.
Aye.
Kinsella.
Aye.
Meyer. Holt. Anderson.
Aye.
Rudowitz. Carpenter.
Aye.
Hart. Sillsby. Hayden. Martinson. Elmore. Schneider. Musgrove. Arlen.
Aye.
Motion carries. There's no, I'm not prepared to go for executive session tonight, so I'll ask for a motion to adjourn. Motion by Alderman Meyer, second by Alderman Anderson. All in favor of adjournment signify by saying aye. Opposed? Motion carries.
Shot at breakfast. Oh, man.